You're listening to the Prepper Recon podcast. For questions, comments, and podcast archives, go to prepperrecon.com. Ready Made Resources is a trusted name in the prepper community because they've been around for 18 years. They offer great prices on night vision, water filtration, long-term storage food, solar energy components, and provide free technical service. Get ready for an uncertain future at ReadyMadeResources.com. Trading Post in the Woods is ran by veteran crisis responders who know how important it is to be prepared. They specialize in comprehensive natural survival remedy kits, preparedness and homesteading supplies, as well as skills training. Visit them online today at tradingpostinthewoods.com. Hey Preppers and Patriots. This is the second half of my recent appearance on the Hagmann Report with Doug Hagmann. Enjoy the show.
And welcome back, folks, to this edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Our special guest right now is Mark Goodwin. His website, prepperrecon.com. Take advantage of the special offer he's got on top of his website. It's a free PDF. It's fantastic, actually. It's a great work, and it's free to you and free to everyone. And it's preparing yourself. It's a 7-step survival plan that helps you prepare for what's coming. And we all know something is coming. I truly believe that we're in a most dangerous time in history. Before we get back to Mr. Goodwin, and we're so proud to be able to feature him, and I want to thank John for setting this up. Before we get back to Mr. Goodwin, I just want to mention that Precious Timber. Have you gone to PreciousTimber.com lately? If you are an investor looking for long-term investments, you've got a lot of possibilities with PreciousTimber.com. Alex Wilson, the owner, he's a Christian business owner. He's got a fantastic business. If you are an accredited investor looking to make long-term investments, visit PreciousTimber.com. Also, ProfitsInCoconuts.com. The first time I saw it, I kind of chuckled. Profits in Coconuts. I thought of Gilligan's Island, for crying out loud. But believe it or not, coconuts, the worldwide demand is making coconuts one of the highest yield cash crops. And wealthy individuals, Coke, Pepsi, a lot of big businesses, high net worth individuals are investing and have invested in coconuts as a growth investment for long-term income. And Alex Wilson is doing a lot of other things with preppers in the prepper community. And folks, there are so many great things on the horizon associated with Precious Timber. You just won't believe it. Visit PreciousTimber.com and take a look at what they have to offer, including ProfitsInCoconuts.com. 15% per year potential average profit. It's an amazing, it's a triple bottom line opportunity, which generates a measurable, beneficial social and environmental impact alongside a very attractive financial return. And again, upwards of 15%. And they could last for up to 60 long years or more. Help them create jobs and educate children, protect their planet by growing coconuts. In fact, in this case, on prime farmland, close to the tropical Costa Rican border. Qualified accredited investors should go to ProfitsInCoconuts.com or dial 855-888-6288 for more information, or just simply visit ProfitsInCoconuts.com or PreciousTimber.com. You're going to be hearing more about this later, and it's exciting. Meanwhile, getting back to Bob Goodwin, again, his website, PrepperRecon.com. Prolific author, many books. I look at him as he's the kind of guy I turn to when I've got questions about anything prepper related. Hence the name PrepperRecon.com. But where do you want to go from here, Mark? Because you are you've got so much information, and you are so well respected. And by the way, your podcast, folks, his podcast on that website, you've got to listen to some of all of them actually, but what a wealth of information, and what a lot of great programs you have had. And I want to thank you for making those available to people, as well. But where do you want to go from here? Because I think there's so much facing us right now. The EMP threat, the potential, having an enemy within the SCADA systems. You've got Obama continually poking the bear. I don't think he's going to go away, or at least not his policies, or perhaps not in time. I mean, It seems like we're fighting a 360-degree war here, all of us. So where do we go from here in terms of conversation that you think is important?
You touched on Obama and the likelihood that he's pushing for a shadow government that's going to be
Yes.
trying to undermine Trump, and we're already seeing that, and we're seeing the same players, Bill Gates, George Soros. They're the ones that are funding the Facebook group that's going to be in charge. They're going to be the fake news czars, if you will. And so this is being done through the corporations. The bill that passed in the House for the Russian propaganda bill.
Yes.
The lobbyists for that are funded by Google. So these are the same people. These are the same government. These are the same global government pushers that we've always heard from, and it's the same people, and they're doubling down on their efforts, and that's why I say that it's not time for us to bask in victory, but for us to gear up. And to borrow a term from James Wesley Rawls, it's time to team up, train up, stock up, and get ready.
Oh, indeed.
And
yeah.
The Prepper Recon podcast, I think it was last week, was removed from Google Play. So sites like Drudge and Breitbart and the Hagman Report and InfoWars, all of these sites are going to be blackballed from Twitter and Fascist Book, and they're not going to come up in a Google search. So the only way folks are going to be able to find them is via direct navigation. So this is the time to be sharing this stuff with your friends and with your family. So because now it's available, and we don't know how much longer that's going to be, because this Russian propaganda bill that's already through the House. And I'm sure that Obama's going to have no problem signing it. In fact, that was part of his speech was the domestic propagandists and the Russians,
right,
that have influenced the elections. So, and then these protests. Another thing that they've shown us is that 50% of America still wants a socialist leader like Hillary or Bernie. And if you've been paying attention to Venezuela, we're seeing the end game of those policies. Maduro, I think it was this week, banned the 100 Bolivar currency note, and there was no new currency printed to take its place. So these people that are already living on a knife edge, they're already starving to death. And now they have no functioning currency whatsoever in their country. And these people are now at the point. One of my listeners that sends me a lot of good stuff sent me a piece from Yahoo News. Robert Amy, he sends me great stuff all the time, and I really appreciate the listeners that send me articles. And there are people giving away their children to anybody that could feed them. And this is Yahoo News. This isn't some conspiracy site. Once again, this is all mainstream stuff. It's just that people don't put the pieces together, and it's hard for them to believe. And because once again, we're not in Kansas anymore. We're in a complete bizarro world. And so for years we've been watching Venezuela meltdown. 2 years ago in Venezuela, we were watching people stand in line for hours to get a day or two's worth of food for their family.
That's right.
And then I guess it was about a year ago, essentials were completely drying up. And we were watching reports of people hijacking food trucks. I remember one of the pictures, and I think it was either Reuters or an AP photo of some villagers that were looting a food truck. Everybody was running away from the truck with a 20-pound bag of rice slung over their shoulder. These people had the biggest smile on their faces because they were going to eat that night. They were going to eat the next day with that 20-pound bag of rice, and they're going to be able to feed their children, and their children aren't going to be asking them if they were going to eat that. And they risked their lives for a 20-pound bag of rice. Now, you and me, Doug, we can go to Walmart right now and we can buy that exact same bag that those people risk being shot with an AK-47 for $7. In white rice, it'll keep for 20 years. It's the cheapest insurance you could ever buy. You can buy a bucket and a lid from Home Depot for another $5. Stick your rice in there, pop that lid on there, and leave it there until you need it. And that's going to keep the critters out just by putting it in that bucket with a sealed lid. And and I talk about all this stuff in the 7-step survival plan. Step one, I start out. I say body, mind, and soul. Because you're your number one survival tool is you. Every year, we're watching the snowstorms again in the north. And just like we do every year, we're going to hear about people that are keeling over from heart attacks from shoveling the snow out of their driveway. Because they've been sitting on the couch all year since last winter when they shoveled the driveway last year, eating potato chips, drinking soda, watching Oprah, and eating donuts.
Yep.
And you're not going to survive like that. You've got to be able to get out of your own way,
I like that.
So
You're
that's
right.
important.
You get out of your own way. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's body, mind, and soul. So your mind, you got to keep your mind sharp. Don't always go buy something brand new, even if you've got the means to just go do it. Try fixing stuff once in a while, just to develop your skills, because you can go to YouTube and learn how to do just about anything.
Yep.
And once you get those skills in your brain, they're there forever. Nobody can steal those from you. You can't misplace them. They're always there. And then soul, let's say you've got 20 years worth of food, and you've got this hardened bunker, and you've got all the guns and ammo you'd ever need. Sooner or later, that stuff's not going to work out. And doctors say that 10 out of 10 people still die eventually. And on that day, you're going to stand before your maker. Mm-hmm. And you need to have in mind what you're going to tell him. What did you do? And when he asks you, what did you do with the blood of my son? Did you accept that free gift for your sins? Because it's not a balancing scale. You're not going to get up there. There's no scale of I did this much good and this much bad, and the good outweighs the bad. That's not how it works, folks. The standard for getting into heaven is perfection. Now, if you've fallen short of that, as I have, then you need the blood of Christ. And that's the only way you're going to get into heaven. And you need that forgiveness, and you need that covering. And that's the only way that happens. So you have to prepare for that. If you're not preparing for that, none of this other stuff really matters.
That's right. And very well said. Yes.
And the next thing I talk about is budgeting. One of the first things folks do when they first wake up to the need to prepare is they freak out because it's overwhelming. It's just too much, and they can't do it all. And that's why I put the 7-step survival plan together.
Right.
And then the second thing they do is they get their credit card and they go to the outdoor world, whatever it happens to be, Bass Pro or Cabela's or whatever, and they rack up $5-10 grand on guns and ammo and storable food and flashlights and batteries and all of this stuff. And what they do is they create their own personal financial crisis when one isn't coming for maybe another 10 or 20 years. And so they create their own crisis by failing to plan and failing to do things on a budget. And so I talk a lot about that, about ways that you can get by. I'm very blessed. I married a couponer, and and we were first starting out. We were on a shoestring budget, and she was able to build up a 6-month food storage for us on our regular grocery budget just by couponing, just by watching for buy one get one free deals and using store coupons and manufacturer coupons, because most stores will let you stack a store coupon and a manufacturer coupon on a discounted item that's already on sale in the store, and you can get stuff for almost free.
That's right.
And so there's lots of ways that you can do that. You don't have to break the bank to get prepared, because that's the excuse all the time. A lot of folks either they say, well, I can't afford to do it. And it's
Yeah,
like, you can't afford not to.
exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because my wife is the same way. In fact, she's got a file. It's kind of like a banker's box, but all these coupons. And I watched something so amazing the last time I went shopping with her. I watched this amazing process of her getting a couple of jars of spaghetti sauce. I think they were like $3.99 a piece. But she got them for like 99 cents. And I don't know how she did. I mean, she had a coupon here, and so I mean, it was just an amazing thing. So, yes, we have to be budget minded, and I think that's so because you're exactly right. Back to the rice situation in Venezuela. Hey, it's better to use coupons and go out today with not under threat of AK-47 fire and stock up, as opposed to waiting until the last minute or not having it at all. You're exactly right. And you approach this, again, a measured approach, folks, to what we're dealing with here.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. The dollar's lost over 90% of its purchasing power since 1971. Silver, on the other hand, has proven to be a very stable form of wealth preservation over the years. And where do you buy silver? Silver.com, of course. Silver.com offers fantastic prices on gold and silver. Check out Silver.com today. Whether your plan is to bug out or bug in, CampingSurvival.com has all of your preparedness needs, including fish antibiotics, long-term storage food, and water filters. Use coupon code PREPARECON for 5% off your order at CampingSurvival.com.
Let me back up, though. You said something here, and it caught my attention. I wrote it down. I wanted to ask you about this. You were talking about one of your podcasts being taken off of the indexing service of the search engines, right? That's what you said, correct? Basically.
No, it's Google Play. It's
Okay.
it's basically it's Google's version of iTunes,
Okay.
and so they'll put your podcast up just like iTunes or Stitcher or somebody else. It's another syndication, if you will.
Mark, is there any way? And we were talking about this today in studio. Before airtime, because we're noticing this take place. The censorship is becoming outrageously oppressive, and it's in your face. It's overt. I mean, no one's trying to hide this anymore. So, are there workarounds that you can see that you would recommend or that you can implement and would recommend other independent media to implement?
As long as we're free to put our information on the internet. And that's, until something like the Russian propaganda bill
right
says that the Hagmann report's got to come down, and they just block you from the internet altogether. They tell the internet service providers, like they do in China, they say you can't, you have to block all of these sites. People can't access these sites. And so that's very easy to do because they do it in China all the time. And once that law's there, then there's not really a workaround for it. For now, as far as discoverability, what do? We work together. We do exactly what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Doug, is you have me on your show, and then I'd like to have you on the Prepper Recon podcast sometime and get some cross-pollination going. And so that we're sharing audiences, and hopefully your listeners are telling folks about your show, and my listeners are telling folks about my show and your show, and they're out there face to face sharing stuff the way that we used to do it before
Right.
Twitter, before Facebook, before email, and getting the information out there so that when it's gone, we'll know it's gone. Because at this point, and I think we're hitting that tipping point to where the mainstream media is losing their credibility because of what they did with the polling, and because of the way that they were so anti-Trump, and they had everybody convinced that there was no way he was ever going to win.
Right.
And I think that they're losing credibility, and they're losing it fast, but they're going to hang on to it with everything they've got. And this is not conspiracy talk. This is just the stuff that we're watching in the headlines right now. And I think it's all just progressing towards that eventual one world government that we read about in the book of Revelations, that we read about in the book of Daniel, and that's where we're headed. And it's such great material that most of my fiction that I write, that's the inspiration for it, is just the news. And particularly one of my series is called The Days of Noah.
Yes.
And it just looks at how modern day conspiracies just blend so seamlessly into end time prophecy. And there's very little light in between the headlines and end time prophecy. It's just meshes together perfectly. And it's undeniable. So it's,
well, you know what, Mark, you got me thinking, and I apologize for kind of going back or kind of giving this kind of the shotgun approach, but you mentioned that Russia propaganda bill. I'm rethinking this now because of what you said. I knew it was there. I've read the bill. I think it's Title 5 of the. I could be wrong. Title 5 of the bill. Anyway, the fact is, you're right. They could flip a switch and make us just shut us off, and we would essentially have no recourse. I'm not even sure what my question is, except to say, do you see, Mark, when you and I are no longer on? I mean, what would it take? Wouldn't it take an event to make that happen, or wouldn't it take something more than an arbitrary decision by the DC power brokers to make this happen, or not? Or I mean, and what would the people do who depend upon programs like yours and ours, and even InfoWars or whatever, wherever they're getting their information from? Wouldn't there be a revolt, or by that time, do you think it would be pretty much game over, game, set, and match?
I think that there's a plan in place, and I think that you touched on it when you talked about Obama and the shadow government. And then and another thing we've got to think about, we've got to really sort of temper our enthusiasm and our expectations about what Trump's going to be able to do with a $20 trillion debt. If he is able to re-energize the economy and sort of get things going again, we've got to remember, during Obama's administration, not only did he double the debt from 10 trillion to 20 trillion, he also took the M2 money supply from 7 trillion in 2008 to it'll be nearly 14 trillion by the time he leaves office. So he's doubled the money supply. Now, when that's inflation, and despite what the Keynesian economists will tell you, they'll tell you that inflation is price inflation, but that's just inflation is an inflation of the money supply. And that's what causes price inflation. And we're going to see it. And as confidence starts coming back into markets, we're going to see all of this money that's been sitting on the sidelines flowing back into markets. And when that happens, prices for everything from cars to houses to all commodities are going to go up. They're going to soar. So, there's a limit to what Trump can do. And if this thing blows up on his watch, and I don't see how it won't, if he gets 8 years, there's a very, very slim chance that the economy and the debt bubble and the bond bubble and the derivatives bubble and all of this stuff doesn't blow up on his watch. It's a very, very slim possibility. Now, once he's blamed for that, that's it. That's the end of Republicans. They'll bring in the next wave of Reids and Pelosi's and Clintons and Soros and his boys will be able to step in, take the reins, shut down Prepper Recon, shut down InfoWars, shut down SGT Report, and the Hagman Report and everything else out there, and nobody will say a word.
You're right.
Because I tell you what, as much as I'm not a fan of the snowflakes, you know what? They're out there in the street speaking their mind, and I don't know if it was a compliment that we were so mature that we accepted Obama when he was elected, or if it's a statement of our laziness that we said nothing. And I'm not so sure the right will get out there and protest and riot in the street and demand their rights. So
what in the world would take it? And we only have about 2 minutes left of your appearance, and I thank you so much for coming on. But what in the heck would it take, seriously, for the conservative right, Christian right? What would it take to get them mobilized? I mean, if Obama didn't do it, what would?
Doug, I don't know. If you do the math, abortion is currently killing 3,288 American citizens per day. That's more than 9/11, the Dallas attacks, the San Bernardino shooting, the Orlando nightclub shooting. It's more than all of those things put together, and that's every single day. And my wife and I, we just moved to a new area, and we've went to church after church after church, and we can't find a pastor that's willing to stand up and say, you've got to vote to put an end to abortion.
It's crazy.
So I don't know what it would take. I think that I don't know. And I hope folks aren't thinking that Trump's going to be able to spare us from the judgment that's due this nation for the innocent blood that's just literally flowing in the streets of America right now because of these 3,288 children that are murdered in abortion mills around this country every single day.
Wow. Mark Goodwin from PrepperRecon.com. Articulate, knowledgeable, a resource, folks, that you want to bookmark his website, PrepperRecon.com. Listen to his podcast and give him a shout out. Thank him for appearing with us, his gracious gift of time. Mark, thank you so very much for coming on with us and sharing your expertise, your knowledge, and your analysis. I think I just hope to have you on again and more conversation, more analysis. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Are we living in a time of which there is more prophetic writings than of any period in history? Watch through the eyes of Noah Parker and his family as a global empire takes shape. Ancient writings are fulfilled and the last days fall upon the once great United States of America. Buy The Days of Noah, Book 1, Conspiracy, in paperback, Kindle, or audio edition at Amazon.com today.